All right, so now we are live on Facebook, live to the world. And let's schmooze. So this is Rabbi Moishe Traxler, a shliach in Texas for 100 years.
No.
Approximately.
This year this is our 40th year on Shlichus.
It's approximately 100 years. 40 years. Can I know?
On the previous century, but not 100 years yet.
Okay, so there you go. So you've been a shliach in 2 centuries. That's 200 years. That's 200 years. That's great. So what day is the anniversary? You don't know the day?
Of course, we left Crown Heights on Shushan Purim, Tafshin Mem.
You flew or you drove?
No, we flew.
So you
we
arrived.
Didn't have a car.
But you had a plane. The old shluchim. They didn't have cars, they owned planes. So you arrived in Texas on Shushan Purim of Tafshin Mem, 1980. So that means that you just passed your 40-year mark, 40-year anniversary.
Baruch Hashem.
Right, just before the precipice. Mamash right before this whole Mishigah started. So the intent of this conversation is basically a visual version of Shmuas V'Sipurim. That's basically what it is. It has uncovered some very, very beautiful hergeshem, stories, feelings about Chassidim and about the Rebbe and about Lubavitch and about people's journeys to Lubavitch. And in particular, the most beautiful stories are the stories of the people who were not born into Lubavitch, people like my father, which was where it started. I started talking to my father, and then went to other people like Rabbi Feller and so on, who arrived in Lubavitch in the Rebbe's day and age. And those stories I can't get enough of. Just the most beautiful spiritual pleasure.
Now, where can I reach? Where can I see these stories and listen to them?
It's on my YouTube channel, and then I'll send you the link to them.
Okay, thanks.
Rabbi Feivish Vogel. I just spoke to a shliach in Israel. I never saw him in my life, but somebody said, talk to this guy, Lezer Lichtenstein. And he arranged the hookups in Eretz Yisrael, the Rebbe's Fabranians, and he had the only fax machine in the city, so everybody was faxing the Rebbe through his house and getting the answers from him. Very interesting stories. But with you, I want to know if, I know you don't have a lot of time because you're involved in urgent matters right now and always, but let's go as much time as you have. Tell me something. Von wann kommt Ayid? Where do you come from?
I was born to my parents in Kansas City, Missouri, in the same hospital they were born in, and the name of the hospital is Menorah Hospital. And so when I was 4 years old, we moved to Dallas, and my father was a pharmacist, Olav Shalom. And when he was a child, he went to a yeshiva in Kansas City. There was an after-school yeshiva. His parents were both from Lithuania. And actually, maybe his mother was born here, but just born here, like the family came over. And they're from a little town called Vishay in Lithuania. And he told me many beautiful stories about this yeshiva and his growing up, learning there. And he was born in 27, so he was a child in the Depression years and the post-Depression years. And so when he met my mother was from a wonderful Jewish home, but her parents were not observant. My mother's maternal grandmother, Fege Shendel, was from a little town outside of Varsha, my great-grandmother. And when I would speak to her, she was not, Yiddish was her language. And she didn't know how to read Hebrew, but she was fluent in Yiddish and reading Yiddish. And she knew more than most. I was making my way to become a Baal Tshuva in those days. She knew more than most rabbis that I knew, but she didn't know it from a position of halacha. She just grew up with it until she was 14 and she emigrated to the United States. where she married my great grandfather. And when my parents met, so it was kind of a mix. My mother not knowing a lot, coming from a very Jewish home, but not knowing a lot of things. So, but my father agreed to make a kosher home, and she didn't really know what that meant. So there was a lot of corrections that came along the way. So I grew up in that sort of a setting, and we always had a kiddush on Friday night. We had yuntas. We had all the family would come over. My mother made a big spread. My father always injected a lot of Siddurim. We used to stay up all night, my father and I, and talk about the Haggadah and sing them Zemiros in the end. So when I was a child, so I went to I was in a synagogue in Dallas, a conservative synagogue, and I came home reading Hebrew with a Havara Ivrit, and my father said, "That's not how you read Hebrew. Komets and a patach and a saf, what kind of stuff is this?" So he immediately yanked me out and put me into the Hebrew school of a conservadox. They didn't have mechitza, but it was traditional in its siddur and its observances and so on. They had a mikveh there. So, and the rabbi actually was an Orthodox rabbi. So I started to go there. And Ellie, I must tell you the truth, I hated Hebrew school. And I hated it with such a passion. I did everything in my power to get thrown out. Everything. And I was successful. Yes, I was. I wanted to play basketball. I didn't want to go. I was after school. I was the whole day in school. It's enough. And so my best friend in this Hebrew school was the rabbi's son. So the rabbi said to me, "Would you boys like to get out of Hebrew school?" I said, "Where do I sign?" And so he said, "So I propose that you come over to my house and learn with Elliot's grandfather and my father." "Fine, just get me out of here." And my mother brought me to their house, and the person who in front of me had a long white beard and a long kapota. I didn't know that's what it was. And he couldn't hardly speak English. He knew very few words in English. He had such a chen, such a kind person, such a kind profile. So we started to learn. So the first thing he asked,
Who was he?
He was the father of the rabbi of the synagogue, and his name was Rabbi Avram Weinschneider. Olav Shalom.
That was the father or the grandfather's name?
The father. That was my friend's grandfather. It was the rabbi's father. He was a shoichet and a rav, and but he didn't have a stellar in Dallas. So he was working in the Golden Acres Moishe Zikanim in the old age home, and but he was a shoichet also. So he asked me the first time I was there. He asked me, "Do you know what is a pick?" "Yes." "It's a tool for breaking up streets." "No, a pick." "Yes, one end is sharp and one end is blunt." And you, "No, a chazer."
A pick.
A pick.
But where did he come from? Where was this man from?
He came from Poland. I don't know where.
He was a Chassidus Yid?
No, but a Yerushalayim, and a very kind, beautiful, beautiful person. So he and Elliot and I were learning, and we started from Bereshis, Chumash and Rashi. I must tell you, I loved every minute. I loved it.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I loved it. It was so special, and I had aptitude for it. I was like hopping around. It's pretty good. And any words that he couldn't translate. So Elliot translated from Yiddish into English. Elliot also a very fine, wonderful man. And so he one time I remember he got up. He said, "Do you want to daven mincha?" I didn't know what he's talking about. I didn't understand what he's saying. So he got up and he went in he was in the room. He just went to the wall and started to daven. I never saw that in my life. I thought that the prayer was, congregation rise, sit down. It was something that took place in a screen in front of everybody. And I mean, I know sitting on a stage, I never saw an individual connecting to davening before. It was very deeply touching. And he taught me about saying brachas. So I used to have a yarmulke, keep a yarmulke in my pocket, and wherever I would go, I would say brachas. And I started to wear tzitzis. So, and it was, I couldn't get enough of it. It was wonderful. When Elliot turned 12, but we're the same age, so his parents said, we cannot be here. We don't want him to grow up without a yeshiva education. So they decided to move to Chicago. So now I said to my parents, I also want to go to yeshiva. I'd heard stories from my father about learning in yeshiva and different stories. My father told me that in Kansas City, there were people who would come, like itinerant, people who were coming, Frumelites. And he said there were some of them were hidden tzaddikim. He used these words. And
did he remember the Frierdiker Rebbe coming to St. Louis?
No, Chicago. I mean, Kansas City.
Oh, that's right, Kansas City. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, he did not. He did not. I don't think the Frierdiker Rebbe ever came to Kansas City.
No, St. Louis. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So
okay, you was from yeshiva. So your father grew up as basically a God.
The name of the Rosh Yeshiva was the name Rabbi, I think Yehuda Braverman, I think. And I have a Bav Mitzvah that they gave my father for his bar mitzvah.
That's amazing. That's a very old yeshiva.
Yeah,
in the heartland, in the American heartland.
Yeah, it was a I guess Rabbi Braverman came over. I don't know when. I don't really know. I mean, my father was 13 in 1940, so he must have come before the war. I don't know. I really don't know the history of it.
So anyway, this rabbi whose father was this holy Jew from Poland, this rabbi, the son, Elliot's father, is still alive today?
No, unfortunately, he passed away 3 years ago.
What a tova he did you! What an amazing thing he did! It's awesome. It's an awesome thought because it never occurred to me even the idea of having an old man with a long white beard teaching Hebrew schoolers. What an impression it would make. You know what I mean? Go to LA, get the most holiest looking Jew you can find, and have him come over and tell the kids a story. They'd never forget it.
Glitz and glamour, is superficial. But you get a emes yid.
Yeah.
It talks to a child, and I was just a regular plain child.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. So they left, and you maintained a connection with them, with the Zayda?
So I said to I used to call him Zayda. So I said to my parents, I want to continue to learn. Can you find me another teacher? And they found this person, another person, nice people, but they didn't have the kind of Zayda, and it didn't work for me. So that effectively stopped my thing. So I studied for bar mitzvah, and I became bar mitzvah, and I learned how to lane and to say Haftorah and to do a few things, but learning that stopped. I still continued wearing the tzitzis for a while, and then after bar mitzvah I put on tefillin for a year, but then I got involved. I was in Boy Scouts and I was in AZA and the regular system of high school and stuff, and but I always kept my yarmulke in my pocket. And whenever I ate, I only ate kosher. So, at least what I thought was kosher. And just a very interesting anecdote that when I was a Boy Scout, so I got involved in leadership training. It was I enjoyed it very much. And so they took me to train patrol leaders. So I was a patrol leader, but these were all patrol leaders. I was training them to be patrollers. So the boys, were trying to show their camping skills, and they cooked all this good food. And they said to me, "How come you're not eating?" I said, "Well, I'm Jewish. I only eat kosher food." These are all children from like little towns in Texas. I said, "Oh, what is Jewish? What does kosher mean? What is all that?" So by the end of the week, they changed the name of their patrol to the Kosher Patrol. And the head of the whole council heard about this. He was also a non-Jewish man, fine man. And he went out and bought kosher food that I should have something more to eat than peanut butter and jelly.
You shouldn't have to eat peak.
What was it? Sure wouldn't eat.
What was the name of this idea?
Zayda is Avram Weinschneider.
Weinschneider. You have a picture
of Rav Avram Weinschneider. I do have.
Not within arm's reach.
No.
Okay.
So they went away, and then, my parents were thinking, I asked them to look into different yeshivas, and they did, and but none of it actually worked out to send me. So that was it. So then, fast forward till I went away to college. So I went to University of Texas. I graduated in May, and my plan was to study pharmacy as pre-med, and I did get a degree in pharmacy in the end, which I'll tell you about. And so I wanted to place out as many courses as I could, and get rid of the stuff that's just a waste of time. So I started school early, and I took a bunch of placement tests, and I got a bunch of stuff out. And anyway, so I'm walking on campus, and I'm doing a lot of thinking, and I was really bothered by certain questions. And Rabbi Friedman wasn't around in those days. For me, I was really, really bothered by a lot of questions.
Could you tell me one or two of them?
All right. First of all, so I was in science, and science is a study of what is and the mechanism. And it's very, very interesting that there are many cycles in science. There's just all kinds of cycles. I'll give you just one example. So now we don't have to use masks because we're doing a Zoom call. But as soon as you put on the mask, there's a lot of carbon dioxide that you're inhaling and you're not getting your full oxygen that you really enjoy. And so it's easy to hyperventilate. Well, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide in the air. Now, trees, leaves take that carbon dioxide and convert it into oxygen. So there's cycles of all these things that one thing happens, another thing is a correction for it, if you will, and it gives everything which is called a homeostasis, a balance in our bodies. We don't think about it, but the potassium and sodium and all these different elements, if they're not in exactly the right balance, calcium, all these things, a person could have all kinds of horrible illnesses. So the body has a stable state. It's called homeostasis. And the whole world is this way. If we would be too close to the sun, we would burn. If we would be too far, we'd freeze. We're exactly the right distance to support life. If the atmosphere were not as thick as it is, the sun rays would burn us to a crisp. The ultraviolet and all this stuff. Everything is just so perfectly balanced. The water cycles of the waves because of the moon. It's just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And the more you think about it, you see that every single thing in nature has its place and has a purpose. This is this, it serves as food for this, and this serves as everything. The more science one sees, the more amazed they become. And with the celestial body, everything fits. One thing I did not discover, I couldn't make any sense out of it whatsoever. I pashut, it bothered me. I couldn't understand why mankind is here. He does not fit in this whole scene of everything that makes sense. He does not. He destroys the cycles with pollution. He messes up the beautiful natural thing that's a perfect, pristine precision. I couldn't get why man is here. And I couldn't figure out from anything in nature. I could not see a purpose in why man is here. then man himself, it bothered me very much, anti-Semitism. There's no difference physiologically between a Jew and anyone else. We're the same. You can't say we're smarter. There's very, very smart non-Jews. You can't say we're this. You can't say that our profile is exactly the same. So why are we hated? What did the Jewish people do? We're actually kind people, compassionate people. Why is there so much anti-Semitism? It just didn't compute.
What years was this, Aderech?
1970. Summer of 1970. I was walking on campus. I see everybody's, this group, there's the hairy kishkas with their thing coming out of the back of their heads, the hair. And there's this Students for Democratic Society and the Young Socialist Alliance. And there's all different kinds of groups going around, And I'm thinking to myself, where do I belong? I don't belong with not this group, and not with that group, not another group. None of these answer me for what my identity is. And that was another thing that really, I couldn't find any thing that made sense that would define me, and not the career I was about to take either, because I was doing it, but it wasn't me. I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Well, one second. How typical were these kind of thoughts amongst your contemporaries? Because these are,
I don't know.
You didn't talk about people?
Yeah, I bounced my questions off of every single person I could find, off my professors and off the smart people and even off rabbis. I couldn't get an answer that satisfied me from anybody.
But was anybody else even thinking about it?
It didn't seem like it.
These are very nice questions, $64,000 questions.
I didn't find people asking these questions, and I didn't find answers at all. And I was very, very, very perturbed, because if these don't have answers, it can't be they don't have answers. It didn't. And then I had another, I was taking calculus and things like that. Have you ever taken calculus, Ellie?
No.
One of the operations that they talk about is as a certain, let's say, X approaches, let's say 0. So I thought to myself, mankind, if you put the guy on the top of Mount Everest, tallest mountain, now what is he compared with the rest of the world? Nothing. He's garnished. He's nothing. You can't even see him. He's so high up, you can't see him. So man compared with the world is nothing. Now take that same man on top of Mount Everest and put him in our solar system. We have how many planets with, 8 planets, whatever, with our sun, with this and that. Now he's really nothing. Take him now on top of Mount Everest in the solar system and put that solar system in our galaxy. And then put that galaxy in the universe. He is absolutely nothing. So then what meaning is there to be a person? But it feels like there's meaning. It feels like there is something. It feels like it. It doesn't sit with me that there is nothing there. Anyway, this is my questions is bothering me and burning me and everything else. And I don't find any.
What did the moon landing and that whole period do for you? Or did it not have any effect on these questions? Made them bigger, smaller?
No, it's a very beautiful application of scientific knowledge, but that's all. Just expanding the man's ability to reach the universe, and I didn't find it as a contradiction to anything. That's what you're supposed to do. So I had all these questions. So I decided that the only thing that would define me from the moment I'm born until I die is not my profession. That's only going to be a certain number of years. and not my political affiliations, not this. The only thing that could do that would be my being a Jew. So I thought maybe in Judaism, there would be the answers to these questions. And so I decided that if that is where the answers lie, well, I should start be observing what I knew what to do. So I had brought my tefillin with me, and I started putting on my tefillin every day. And I was eating kosher, but I was just trying to do, and I started davening. I just stood there. I was starting to daven. I had a roommate that was Grabazach. Anyway, he was wondering, what are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, so I'm walking on campus one day. So mind you, my yarmulke is in my pocket, and and I see a Jewish student with a yarmulke and a beard and tzitzis. Unheard of. In Texas, this is not done. Texas, you're a Jew quietly in your home, and that was it. That was it. I saw this guy on campus with a yarmulke and a beard and tzitzis. I ran over to him. I said, how can you do that? How can you do that in public? He said to me, he was a student from, his name is Myron Friedman. He's a good friend of mine. He's a student from El Paso, a graduate student then, I think. And maybe not, I don't remember. He had spent the past year in Israel on the Hadassah year program. And so they take him to various places, tours like a kibbutz and all these things. So the last place they went to was Kfar Chabad. And there was someone over there who spoke to them and said, you're going back to the United States. Be proud of your Jewishness. And he spoke about Ge'on Yaakov and being proud in your garments and to look like a Jew. And he was very touched by that continuation of his wonderful.
You got muted somehow.
I'm sorry, I'm back. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
I'm sorry, I got a phone call. All right. So he comes back and he says to me, I asked him, where do you live? He said, well, there's a place called Hebrew House. It's a Hebrew language cooperative, and they have kosher food. I said, kosher food, man, I'm in this dormitory and I'm eating, just salads. And then, wow, I'm going to come over. Anyways, I broke my contract. I moved in over there. And so they thought I was the most religious of them. So they gave me a code of Jewish law, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and said, you do the religious instruction there. Me? Oh my, what? Anyway, or whatever, not religious instruction, but, just to be the, anyway, so a lot of wonderful friends I have from there, and Ad Hayom. My mother was not in good health, had not been for a number of years, and my father decided they're going to move to San Francisco. It's a much easier, California is a much easier environment in terms of weather. And it's a beautiful place there, and maybe that will be of benefit for him. So I went to go visit them for spring break. Now, by the way, I forgot to say that since I saw Myron wearing yarmulke and tzitzis, I said, well, if he can do it, I'm going to do it too. I took my yarmulke out right then, and I started wearing it. Came back to the dormitory, and then I was sort of a personal kind of guy. So someone at the dorm said to me, she worked there, she said, what's that beanie on your head? And I ordered tzitzis. I started wearing tzitzis, Talis cotton. And anyway, so I went to California, and I'd never been in an Orthodox synagogue all my life. So I wanted to see what is a real Orthodox synagogue. So there was on Yehuda and Parnassa Street or something like that. So I came to the synagogue. I saw the rabbi, nice man, smart man, nice clean-shaven rabbi. But I was really looking for Zadie. So I spy in the back of the shul a rabbi with a long beard, a long white beard, and a long coat, and a big hat, and I run over to him. I start talking to him. And he doesn't speak a word of English. And I didn't speak a word of Yiddish in those days. So we both spoke broken Hebrew, my University of Texas Hebrew. And turns out his name is Avram Mayor. And he tells me that he is, his son, Chaim Mitzvah, is coming out to be the youth director of that synagogue in June. So at the end of the semester, that semester, I'll come back and I'll be able to meet his son. And we had to have Pesach there. With my family. We came back to the University of Texas.
What was he doing there if Chaim Mitzvah wasn't even living there yet?
Chaim Mitzvah wasn't there. It was his father.
I know, but what was Avram Mayor doing there if Chaim Mitzvah didn't live there yet?
Avram Mayor was a shadar for Yeshiva.
So he was there as a shadar?
Yeah,
he was there before Chaim Mitzvah?
Sure. He used to come. He used to go all over the country. You didn't know?
I thought his connection to San Francisco was because of Chaim Mitzvah, not the other. No, I didn't. I knew he was a shadar, but I thought his connection to San Francisco was because of his son, not the other way around. I'm going to put up a picture of him.
That's fast. Shia Korf.
I think it's Sadia
Librov.
Yeah. But Avram Mayor is the one on the left with his hand in his jacket.
Right.
This is sort of what he looked like when you saw him for the first time?
Younger. Not much.
Beautiful, a beautiful face. It's a very easy to be inspired by that face. I sympathize with you.
So I met him.
So how'd you communicate with him?
My broken Hebrew, and his broken Hebrew. Finally, somebody understood Yiddish, came over, and he interpreted for both of us.
That's awesome.
Because otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten it. So, but that was so nice to see that someone who looked like Zadie was still around. That was like a big push for me. So it turns out that Pesach, that shul, there was a family there, the Langer family. There were two brothers. And very nice. I think Moishe Langer and another, they very sweet men, I remember. Anyway, there was someone invited me to come to their house to eat Pesach Day because I walked to shul. I forgot to tell you that when I was young, my father told me that religious people don't drive on Shabbos until they walk. So from then on, I started walking to shul every Shabbos. So anyway, so I came to the house and they had matzah. I'd never had this matzah before. They baked it in their own house. They had their own shmur matzah.
This was Langers.
No, it wasn't Langer. It was another family there. I don't remember the name.
Mm-hmm.
Like a yeshivish family, because the boys learned in yeshiva somewhere. Anyway, so that summer, so I came after I finished the semester, and I come to, so now we're talking about 71. And I go to Chaim Mitzvah, and I plop on him all of my questions, one after another. And nobody answered them for me before. and I didn't know if there were any answers. So he takes out a Likutei Torah. And he goes to a mimer, which I don't remember. I don't know which mimer it was. He says to me that was a mimer that Shimon Lazarus had learned with him. And he starts reading from the mimer. And I tell you, Eli, you know what his amtus is?
I don't know. I know what it means.
I felt it. I felt for the first time in my life, I was drinking pure water that directly addressed every single thing that had bothered me so much. And it was so clear. I didn't have to help that, with other things, you always ask, what's your proof? Where do you get this from? Who says it? I didn't need any of that. It was right away. It was so crystal and so clear and so inspiring and so moving. I said, what is that? What is that? He says, this is Chassidus. Wow. And he closes it up. I said, what'd you do that for? He opens the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Are you doing everything that's in here? I said, yes, I am. So he goes to the very beginning. Are you washing Negelwasser by your bed? He translated Negelwasser for me. I said, no, I'm not. I said, why aren't you? Because that was in the olden days when they didn't have hygiene. But nowadays we have hygiene. We know it. I said, no, Chacham, that's not what it's for. It's the reason we do this is a spiritual matter altogether. So he says, you really need to learn. I said, well, I'd like to learn, He said, well, there's a summer yeshiva.
1 second, I'm going to put up a picture of him. This is probably what he looked like when you were learning the Maimon.
No, he's old in this picture.
This is old?
Yeah.
Okay. If this is old, you must be really old.
His beard, he's only a few years older than me. He was what, 18? I was 18, so he was 19. He's 21, 22, 23.
Chaim Mitchell Drizzen. Great. Okay, so which yeshiva did he ship you off to? Or try to ship you off to?
The yeshiva at 741 Gailey.
A yeshiva?
Rosh yeshiva was a person named Stuhl.
My father-in-law.
Mashpia was a person named Schwartzy. And the cheerleader was Baruch Shleimer.
Stuhl is my father-in-law, do you know?
No.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. He's such a special man. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow. I had no idea this connection.
Rabbi Rachmiel Stillman. You ask him. He'll tell you. So we learned. He taught me Bava Kama. And with Rabbi Shleimer, we learned Tanya. And that's why we davened. I mean, it was a very nice environment. It wasn't a real yeshiva. It was like a little summer yeshiva, but it was for me, it was great. And then I got message that in order for me to transfer to UCS FMC pharmacy school, I had to go take 2 more courses. So now I'm finishing my summer in the middle and going to back to San Francisco. So I went to Berkeley and I had to take a comparative anatomy and a second semester of calculus to get into the. So I did those 2 things and I got into the school over there. And so I continued learning with Hamicha and davening. And I told my parents I really want to go learn in yeshiva. I'd like to go to Eretz Yisrael, and I have some bar mitzvah money saved up, and I understand there's yeshivas there. And could I go? My mother was very ill, and she asked me not to go.
Can you tell me which other characters you remember from those days in Gailey, just quickly? If anybody besides Schwartz.
Rabbi Levitansky, Rabbi Remmel, came in with his brother, and her brother was a Hinterstellige Bruder, and I saw such love, such genuine, beautiful, like real love of him for his brother. It was astounding. It was very, very special. I think he came in with his mother and his brother, but he must have been in Simcha Monica in those days. And I don't remember anyone else. I don't know if there was anybody else there besides Schwartz's Shomer Shabbos Kosher Bakery.
My wife's grandfather didn't come out at that time, Rabbi Bucket.
You know what? I met Alti. Alti was there, and so we learned Parshas Pinchas, the first Aliyah.
Alti was a bacher.
It was a bacher, a young bacher.
Yeah.
And so Rachi is your speaker.
Right.
Right. What's your wife's name?
Shani.
Shani. I don't think she was born then.
No. Both of us were born in the late 70s. This is you're talking about the earlier middle.
Yeah. So
was there a Jew named Zacko there at that time? Zach Miller?
I don't recall.
Did the drug program exist yet?
There were some people on drugs. There was a fellow. I'm trying to think. His name was Mashiach. He called himself Mashiach.
Baruch Hashem.
Maybe Baruch Hashem. There was some...
My in-laws reminisce about Chabad House in the 70s before the fire. They talk about these characters like you think this was some kind of a.
It was real.
Talk about it with such love, with so much.
It was
love.
real. It was real. It was real. It was absolutely real, and it was crazy. I'm from Texas. I didn't see anything like this before. It was very, very. But okay.
A lot of beautiful people came out of that Chabad House.
Oh yeah.
A lot of beautiful people and families and Einiklach. Beautiful. I didn't know that you were one of them. That's very cool. All right.
741 Gale Avenue. Yeah. It was quite touching. So then in Cheshvan of that year, my Zaidi died in Dallas, my mother's father. So my mother did not want to leave her mother alone. So the family decided to move back to Dallas. So I finished that quarter. California's on the quarter system. I finished that quarter. And by the way, I just want to tell you that school was, I think, one of two top of the line schools of pharmacy and medical school. But I was in the pharmacy school. It was really it was very, very rigorous scientifically. It was excellent education for that. And every day I used to go for lunch to Golden Gate Park and sit over there and just, reflect on Godless Abayre. It was so gorgeous over there. Okay, anyway, we moved back to Texas, and there had been no Chabad presence at all. I didn't even know about Chabad. I didn't know what Chassidim were. I never heard of it. Well, there's actually another little story. I mean, you're asking for stories. So I had heard about Chassidim in an article I read in Austin before I came out there. And so I tried to call, I can't remember the name, Shlomo Carlebach had a little something over there. So I called and there was no answer. And that was very providential. And then there was another
House of Love and Peace or something like that?
Yeah. And then there was another rabbi there, Rabbi Lipnik, who was he had a day school there. So once a week he had a shir in Gemara in his house. We were learning brachas. So I heard about it, so I came to learn in his shir. And one night a guest comes in, and this guy's a big guy with, big hair, bardel. And Rabbi Lipnik shows him a lot of kavod. And the guest asks Rabbi Lipnik, where are you up to in the Gemara? So he says, and then he starts quoting the Gemara by heart. I was like, whoa. And then after that, he went around and gave everybody a kiss. Reb Shlomo. Siyurim. Anyway, but Baruch Hashem, I was at that time under the the Pikus of Chaim Mitzvah, thank God. And so we learned Chassidus, and he guided me. I was in a sukkah for the first time. There was a fellow, Tornik, Zalman Tornik, Allah Shalom. And he used to live in San Francisco, he with his family. He became a sefer and moved to Tzfas. Anyway, we moved back to Texas. So I heard that there was a Lubavitcher, his name Shalom Ber Aparovich. He had moved to teach with his wife in the day school over there. So right away I called him up, very wonderful family. And they're makar of me very much, and just beautiful, beautiful people. So I used to go to them every Shabbos. And especially, the college didn't start yet because the quarter finishes early and the semester system starts late. So I had a bunch of 5-6 weeks there. So we came over to their house all the time and we learned. And then I went back to Austin. And now my going back was, I was at a different level than I was before. I was not a Lubavitcher, but I wore a hat and I looked like a Lubavitcher boy. And I was deeply impressed by the Rebbe's tefillin campaign. I thought, what a wonderful thing to be Mazaka Yidden with Hanachas tefillin. So I used to ride my bicycle and put my tefillin in a little pouch in the back. And when I had some time, so I would stop at a place by the student center and ask people if they would like to put on tefillin. I was very shy and very, but Baruch Hashem, I got people to put on tefillin.
But you were not a Lubavitcher.
I was not. Absolutely.
Just doing mitzvah tefillin.
I was doing mitzvah tefillin, and that inspired by the Rebbe. And then, I had moved back into Hebrew house, but now it had changed its flavor altogether. It's a very different group of people there, and there were more of the religious people had stayed, and before I'd been sort of cosmopolitan. And then, so my friend Myron and his wife were to get married in June. And so I was invited to the wedding in Houston. I was very excited about coming. And I had heard from Rabbi Aparovich that there's a new shaliach that just moved to Houston right after Lag Boimer. And this is Rabbi Shimon Lazarov. So I was very excited. So I came to Houston for the wedding and I called up Rabbi Lazarov and said, can I come meet you? He said, certainly. And we met. And so my first questions were about Chassidus. I wanted to see if he knew something, And he, Baruch Hashem, the day is Sefer and the Koyach Hashbara. And I really liked it. I had questions halacha, and it was with clarity and knowledge, and I was impressed, very impressed. I asked him, we have a bunch of students in Austin. Maybe you'd like to come and give shiurim. He says, that's what the Rebbe sent me here for. So we arranged that he should come, and we started my first words that he said when he spoke. He said, the first words, Eved Avrom Anoichi, and explained it. And I never, my life, I'd seen rabbis. I always have, ritual committees, and you have shuls, and you have boards, and you have big congregations and stuff. But the concept of a Jewish Peace Corps, that was so powerful. Caring about an individual Yidden to help them, it was like, it blew me out of the water. I was saying to myself, I know this could never happen, but that's what I want to do. My is that I had earlier, like a revelation. I sort of woke up in the middle of the night and said, you really want to be a doctor? Are you ready to wake up in the middle of the night and go heal somebody? And I said to myself, no, I'm not interested in that. So I said, I don't want you for a doctor. So what do you want to do? I said, I don't know, to myself, but I know I want to be a Jew. I want to know what it means to be a Yidden, to serve Hashem as a Yidden. So anyway, he came and he spoke about this Jewish Peace Corps, and I was just dreaming. I didn't know how to learn. I didn't know how to, but I would wish I could be one of the Rebbe's soldiers. And the whole time when I came back from California, so I had with me Hebrew, English, Tanya, not Hebrew, English, English, Tanya, the little books. I don't know if you ever saw them. They're just individual. Each book had been translated by itself. So the first of Tanya. So you have like Igeres Tshuva, it's a tiny little book, and Shar Yichva, a tiny little book. When I was learning Tanya, and I think I was learning it according to the Shir of Chitas. I don't remember for sure. I think I was. In the English, I was on fire, Ellie. And I identified with every concept that the Alter Rebbe spoke about, at least what I thought I understood. Like, it resonated right inside. It wasn't something that was foreign. I was on fire. And so I made up.
Could you give me an example?
A feeling of burning love in your heart. Ava Kirish Be'esh. I don't have it now, but I had it then. It was definitely Chassidus La'ela, and it needs a lot of work to get that back. But I felt it very, very strong. I had, so I made up with all the boys who lived in the house. I said, we have to learn every day. So we took the old, I don't know if you know what it is, in the SSR Chumash. It was like a linear Chumash, and we started learning the Chumash Rashi. I don't know how much we understood, but that's what we did. And we learned Chumash Rashi every day. I don't think we learned Tanya, but every day we had a shir in Chumash Rashi. Then, so that summer, Rabbi Lazar was coming, and he asked me, would I like to go to see the Rebbe? I said, definitely.
What was your knowledge of the Rebbe up until this point? From San Francisco to LA to Texas, what did you know about the Rebbe?
I had written to the Rebbe, I heard from Moishe about, and of course all the Chassidim spoke about the Rebbe, but I didn't really know much about the Rebbe. I really did not. But I'd written to him about my mother's health. Yeah. So Yud Beis Tammuz, he was going to be in New York. This is his first Yud Beis Tammuz here, Tafshin Elam Beis. So he asked me if I'd like to go. So I said, sure. So I bought a ticket to go, and arrived, I don't know, midnight. And then I took public transportation to get to the subway, to get to Crown Heights, and I got lost on the subway. And I was deep in Harlem, and a black man said to me, "Are you lost?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Where are you trying to go?" I said, "Oh, you're on the wrong side." So go over to this side, okay? So I around, I don't know, maybe 3:00 in the morning. I start walking on the street, and he sees me, and he starts, it was a very where were you? The whole time I'm nervous. I'm looking for. There's no cell phones in those days. There's nothing. So I told him what happened. I said, okay, come. I had never seen so many Jews in my life, and I also never seen so many blacks. It was like 3:00 in the morning, with all these people wandering around. Anyway, you come into there was a guest. The Tzivos Hashem house used to be a guest house. So he bangs on the door, and the fellow behind the door starts cursing. What are you doing here? In language I didn't know what he was saying, but English too. And what do you do? So finally Rabbi Lazar gets him to open the door, and he lets me in. I sleep over there. And so Friday I came to daven mincha. It must have been Thursday night. So Friday afternoon I come to daven mincha. I go upstairs, and I'm standing in the room. I said, this is where the Rebbe is going to be, okay? So I stand. When you come in, the Zal upstairs. So I went right behind the door that the Rebbe would go through. So right behind the door, I stand next to the door. And I'm there for a minute or two, and someone says, you can't stand here. So I figure, oh, this must be the Rebbe's place. So I move, and a couple of minutes later, Rebbe Chadikov comes in. I didn't know it's Rebbe Chadikov. You know, a very honorable, venerable man. I said, I don't think that's the Rebbe. And then, a minute or two later, the Rebbe comes in. That was the Rebbe. And so that Shabbos and Sunday, there were Verbringens for Yud Beis Tammuz. And it was very exciting. But I said to myself,
wait, you can't go right to yet. So you saw the Rebbe for the first time, and what did you see? What did you notice?
Malchus. I felt a deep feeling of Malchus. I was awed. So then I looked around 770 and I saw all these people with black glasses, black hats and beards and glasses and dark suits. And even though I was looking like them too, I said, I don't want to be like these people. I don't want to lose my identity. I had such a big ego that I had to keep my identity. So, but I admired every single thing they did. And just for Verbringens, I didn't understand what was going on, but just the amount of hours and the manner of the Rebbe. I've never seen so many young people stand for hour after hours after hours after hours, glued. I've never seen anything like that anywhere, ever. Old timers, okay, but young people, it was an anomaly. It wasn't what one would expect. And now I experienced the Shabbos in Crown Heights and other things too. I'll mention that Rabbi Lazarov took me to his figures, the Levi Yitzchok Shapiro, Rebbetzin Gutta Shapiro. And I had the best gefilte fish I'd ever had in my whole life. It was really but the whole family, the whole, Chassidus family like this in Crown Heights, and was very, very special. So anyway, I came back, and and he continued coming once a week to give shiurim, and we had a group of students. We moved to an apartment, and it continued to go in my apartment, and we called people, and I would spend a lot of time on the phone, and we got, as many as 50 people on a night, Monday night, Tuesday night, for Rabbi Lazarov to come, and he would give a sikha, a few words, and talk to people and so on. The next summer, before the summer, he talked to us about going to Yeshiva. And he asked me would I like to go to Yeshiva. I said, Yeshiva? I've been wanting to go almost my whole life. I would love to go to Yeshiva. So he sent, I sort of forgetting the year, but he sent a bunch of us. I don't remember this year or the second year, but there were 10 of us. And one of them was a good friend of mine from Dallas. We grew up together, and he was riding his bicycle. He was a bicyclist. He'd been training, and he got hit by a truck in Louisiana. He was Nifter, and Reuven Lax. And his brother is also a friend of mine, who was distant. He wasn't really coming around. But at the Levaya, and then afterwards at the house, so he came over to Rabbi Lazarov and he said, what can I do for my brother's memory? And he said the Rebbe had once spoken that all the mitzvahs that your brother cannot do, you should do them now. And so he started coming to the shurim, started, very brilliant man, Eli Lax, and started doing these things and taking me very seriously. And so Avraham Yor came to my apartment when he was making his travels through Austin, Texas. So he stayed in our apartment. I asked him, should I wake you up? Because he would wake up in the middle of the night to take a bus to Dallas and try to raise the money. I don't know how much money he raised, but he davened hours and hours. I left for class around 8 o'clock. He was learning Imre Bina, if I'm not mistaken. And when I came back at 2 o'clock, he was sitting with his tallis over his head and davening. So how much money he collected, I'm not sure. And he was, so we asked him to make a farbrengen. And so there was a fellow there who spoke Russian. And so he translated the Russian into English. And we had a farbrengen. Anyway.
What happened at the farbrengen? Give us chazara. What did he tell you?
I tell you, I don't really remember. I just remember we were farbrengen. It was very nice. That year we went to Yeshiva. So that was very powerful. Rabbi Avraham Lipsker was a Rosh Yeshiva, Mashpia. Fitzy was my teacher, one of the teachers.
Morristown.
And we were learning. And the boys who were there were all Balei Tshuva, who had the most amazing, miraculous stories that brought them there. And the davening was so genuine, and for bring-ins, it was so neshamadik, not superficial spiritual. It was people's neshamas talking, just their neshamas talking. It was very special. He had some of the foolishness also, but Rubim Kukulim were all very sincere people. I was so taken by being there that I wrote to the dean. I'd already started my first year of the 3 years of professional sequence in pharmacy. So I wrote to my dean and asked if I were to take off a year to, would I lose my standing in pharmacy school? He said, no, it would be okay. So I decided everything I knew about the Rebbe was he did not encourage college. And what he did encourage was people should learn in yeshiva and so on. So I thought, you know what, let me write a letter to the Rebbe and ask him for a bracha v'askama to take off a year. Now, Eli, I had no intention of ever going back to college in the Shtusserai there. It had no meaning and no pleasure for me whatsoever. And so I wrote a letter with 3 possible paths that seemed to be in front of me. I wrote that my father really wants me to finish pharmacy school, but I could either go back and finish it very quickly, place out, and it would take me a year and a half, and then come back to yeshiva. Or I could stay in yeshiva for a year, and but I really had no intention of ever going back to pharmacy school. Who cared? Yeshiva was real life and it was real learning. It was everything I ever wanted to know. How to be a Jew, and Or the third one, just to round out all the shows. I was thinking about the possibilities to go back to college and come back summers, and that would delay everything the longest amount of time, and so on. So I sent this into the Rebbe together with the dean's letter, and asked the Rebbe's Eitz of bracha v'askama. Which do you think the Rebbe chose?
From all of the stories that I've ever heard, the Rebbe usually sent people to go finish their degrees.
You heard the Rebbe sent people to finish their degrees?
Let's say with Yitzhak Block and with
Yitzhak Block, yeah.
similar. Is that what the Rebbe did? The Rebbe sent you back?
Not just back. In the longest way it would take to come back summers, it would take the longest amount of time to finish off everything.
How did you deal with that? How did you handle that? I mean, everybody knows that Rebbe wanted people to finish the whatever, but it must have been torture to have discovered yeshiva and then being thrown back into college. How did you deal with that?
Because the Rebbe was looking for the greater benefit.
I know that, but how did you deal?
There was no rabbi in Austin. I was the student coordinator. And we had 50 people in our house for a Friday night, and we had for the shiur and for Rabbi Lazaroff, and things were pashut happening. A lot of Balei Tshuva came out from that. So I was looking out for, my pleasure. The Rebbe was looking out for these neshamas.
Yeah. Did you feel this way then, or are you looking at that way? You're looking at this now that way. That's how you felt back then.
It took a little time, but I realized that's what it was.
So you never went back to Morristown?
Oh, I did. I went back the next summer.
Summers.
And then the summer after that, I didn't because I finished my degree in pharmacy, so I needed to spend the time getting my license. I had to go to do some internship and stuff like that.
So you spent one more summer in Morristown?
Huh?
So you spent one more
Lamed
summer?
Gimel Lamed Daled, I was in Morristown. And then summer of Lamed Hey, I was finishing to get my license as a pharmacist. And so I went back in January of Lamed Vav.
So can you tell us a little bit about the tziyurim that you saw in Morristown? You must have seen some. I mean, it wasn't just first of all Fitzy Lipsker himself. I could listen to you talk about him for an hour. I remember him very little from when I was a little bucker there. But my Zayda ever came around? Zayda Gordon, Yisrael Gordon was there.
Yisrael Gordon was there. I'll tell you a few of the. So first of all, I had not decided to be a Lubavitcher.
Still
I want to make that clear. No.
Miftzah Tefillin, I'm a kusher to the Rebbe, and goes to, but not a Lubavitcher. By the way, Meir Tzibur was also there. Okay, right there. Go ahead.
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, not at all. Until Fitzy was teaching a mimer of Chodesh Hazeh Tafshin. And I remember we were learning the mimer. It's about Oyer v'Shefa. I got to give some juice to my phone. Uh-oh. Yeah. We're learning mimer. And I remember when we came to a certain punchline, and I started howling. I was pashut screaming. The shiur finished, and I was screaming. And I said, I can't believe that until now, my Eibishter I thought was so tiny. I was believing this Eibishter is tiny. After learning this whole Indian of Moir and Shefa and Kula Kolokamik Choshiv, and I mean, like, I was blown away. That's what I was believing in before. That's when I started to realize what it means not just to serve Hashem as a Jew, but as a Chassid. And a Lubavitcher Chassid. Chassidus Chabad. And the Rebbe started, I mean, I still had problems with the Rebbe. What is giving so much power to one person, It's all just, lack of knowledge and stuff. But, and also whatever it is, I like to do my own thinking. So just how I am.
What were some of the other highlights there, Amar? Some Fabrengens and Tziyurim, the Chassidim, even your friends. Maybe there's some special people that you were learning with.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot. There's so much. There's this. I tell you what, I need to do a human need now. So do you want to wait?
Of course I want to wait.
Okay.
Okay, we're back.
I remember it was Tafshin Lamed Zayin, I think. I think it was Chaf Av for bringing where the Rebbe sang Lirois Uzi Uchvedi.
Nafshi Uchvedi.
Liz Nafshi Uchvedi. Yeah. Anyway, so it's already 5 o'clock, but I'll to give you just a few things. So shiurim so there were some very interesting shiurim over there. So, for example, Moshe Bogomilsky's brother, what's his name? He's from New Jersey. Who's Rabbi Bogomilsky in New Jersey? What's his first name? You need me now? Maybe Mendel. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, he used to give the most amazing shiurim in tefillah. He would come in and with all these gematriyos and how every single word has to be exactly right. The way the Alter Rebbe wrote the Siddur, it fits according to Kabbalah and according to the Niglin. And they had the Rabbi Azaba, was there as a Rosh Yeshiva for a time in Tomchei Tamimim, and I had a lot of just. I after a while, well, so I finished that first summer, and I went back to Austin. I did what the Rabbi said. Went back to Austin, and now I spent a lot more time learning. And by the time I came back, the next summer, I was not where I left off. I was already a sheer advanced. And not too long after that, I went over to upstairs, they call it, Tomchei Tamimim. I started learning over there. And Shmulik Heber was like a star. He had such a chayas and a way of thinking, an exciting way of learning Gemara that it just pulled it out. It was just so exciting. And a Melech Tzvibel with his for bringing so I didn't say, but when I was in Tiferes, so I wanted to learn Yiddish because I wanted to be able to understand the Rebbe in the original, and I wanted to be able to read a Sikh and learn I wanted to be a self-learner. So there was a Bacher, I think his name was Avram Rattenberg, and he knew Yiddish, and he was also in Tiferes. So I asked him, please don't speak to me in English. Let's type everything into Yiddish. I don't understand. I'll say I don't understand, but otherwise, and I had like notebooks, and I had also taken a college class in Yiddish at the university, but it's not a rabbinical Yiddish for sure not, and it's not even, so, but that's where I learned Yiddish, starting like that. And personalities, had Moishe Harrison, like one of my heroes, the man able to do and to establish and to take the yoke of such a heavy thing. And I remember one time David Chase came and spoke with the boys, and I was blown away. He said, you're all looking at me like I'm very wealthy. I said, yeah, I never saw anybody in my life so wealthy like that. He said, that is a mistake. I am blessed to be Hashem's trustee to do the right things with what he has given me. Wow. What words. I remember that in the Mendel Futterwas came to verbring in Tomchei Tamimim, and not that I could say I understood everything he said, but just a seer of, we had also verbringings with the Bachim themselves. So one Bacher said that, this is with Melech, what I'm saying, not somebody outside the issue, that he went into the Rebbe for his birthday Yechidus, and he asked the Rebbe for a tikkun for being over the shir the Rebbe gave for saying l'chaim. And the Rebbe said he should be mashpia on at least 3 other bachrim to take upon that shir. And it was so real, the way the bacher said it, and the way Avramo Grossbaum was in charge of the Mevtzoim office. So every Friday, he used to give people coins or wherever it took to take the train or wherever they're going to. So I had a route to go to Madison and put on tefillin with people over there, and very.
Who were your friends, your close friends, when you went to in Tiferes and in Tomchei?
First, we came with a bunch of boys that I'm sure you know Benzion Kravitz.
Oh yeah.
He was there with us. He's younger than me, and he's like not in the same. But yeah, he's one. Who else would you? Tuvia Teldon, Shmuley Rothman. Who else might you know? Menachem Schmidt. Menachem Schmidt and I are very close.
It's an all-star team.
Powerful guys. Really. Emissary. Really outstanding people. There are many others, but it was a beautiful. It was beautiful. What can I tell you? It was amazing. But I still had my eye on maybe one day I could be a shliach.
Did you had a Yeshiva at some point?
Yes. So for my birthday in Lamed Daled. This was the last year of birthday Yechidus, and this was the last. This I think was right then, either then or shortly after the birthday Yechidus stopped. So I was very. You know Michal Machnik?
The artist.
He was in Yeshiva together. A lot of great personalities, wonderful people. So I went into Yechidus, so I'd learned about Rabbeinu Tom's tefillin the previous year, and that people were ordering from the Rebbe Sefer, Rabbi Shai Matlin, Olav Shalom, and it took a long time to do it. So if I was interested in doing it, I should order well in advance. In those days, we were asking the Rebbe if a person should put on tefillin. Rabbeinu Tom's. So I had Yechidus before I went back to Austin. So my birthday is in Av. So I had Yechidus before my birthday. And right after that, we left town. I wrote my zettel. And in there, I wrote, it was very interesting the way the Rebbe read the zettel. He took the paper like this, and he curled it between his hands like a scroll. First, he took a pencil and checked off certain, and then he read it like this. It's very interesting. The Rebbe asked me, do I speak Yiddish? So then I did not. So I told him I don't. So he spoke in English to me. And asked about several things. And I asked about the tefillin. I'm going back to Austin now and about tefillin Rabbeinu Tam. The Rebbe said, now I didn't tell him that I'd ordered it. And I didn't tell him that Rabbi Matlin was very slow on these things. So the Rebbe said to me when I asked, should I put on Rabbeinu Tam's? He said it would be a good idea to put on Rabbeinu Tam's when I have my own pair. And tell the Sefer to hurry it up. So what happened? I don't know if language is the duke, hurry it up, but that's what. So I got back to Austin, and my tefillin arrived on Chai Elul. So I started putting on Rabbeinu Tam's Chai Elul Tafshin Lamadal. So there's so many things to say. Ask me a question or two.
Well, I want to know how much time you have, because if you have to go, we'll do a sequel, because I have a lot of questions.
Okay,
and
so let's do a sequel.
We're only up to 1974, so.
Okay, so we'll do a sequel. There's many stories.
We'll make a sequel. I said I'll be in touch with you. I'll email you. We'll do a sequel. And thank you for today, and I wish you an early happy birthday. I don't know what you said your birthday is in Menachem Av, but what?
Chaf Aleph.
Chaf
Aleph. Ach Tov Chesed.
Kol Yemei Chayecha. Chaf Aleph Av. That's a very nice day. Okay, Rabbi.
I share the same birthday as your uncle Zelig.
Ah, yeah? You're shtickle mechutten with my uncle Zelig.
More than shtickle. His Balei Tshuva, the Rebbe's Balei Tshuva. Nobody is anybody's Balei Tshuva, but he was Zoicha that David Kaufman in the Chama where he is Bali Tshuva, and their daughter is my Shnur.
Right.
You know my son
Yeah.
Mendy?
I know. Mendy or Menachem?
I have Menachem. He's in Yerushalayim.
I think I know
That's
Menachem. I don't think I know Mendy.
Menachem Yitzchok. And Mendy is how old are you, Eli?
42.
Menachem is turning 39 today.
Yeah. Oh.
Tonight. Gimel off.
So in the Maimer Vata Tetzaveh, the Rebbe in parentheses says Anshe Moishe. I don't know how many times through Chassidus this expression is used, Anshe Moishe, but in the Maimer the Rebbe says Anshe Moishe. The Rebbe is Chevre, and people use this expression for a lot of different groups of people, the Chassidim, the Shluchim, the Bachrim, But if you think about it honestly, a Jew whose entire Yiddishkeit is from the Rebbe, because he doesn't have any major yichus and any very, very, Geshe kind of background. This is mamish. These guys are Anshe Moishe, and if you look around Lubavitch today, not to disparage or put anyone down, but the Rebbe raised a generation of Jews whose Yiddishkeit belongs to him, through his shluchim or whatever. He's the Anshe Moishe. So without too much flattery, I just want to tell you that we'll have a sequel, but I really, really appreciate this. You are one of the Anshe Moishe. You have no illustrious lineage of any great famous rabbis, although the Zaydik character, I don't know, that's an amazing, extraordinary person, extraordinary story.
Ali, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
So,
I don't have any illustrious rabbis in my.
Your yichus is the Rebbe. The Rebbe is your yichus because your Yiddishkeit, Chassidishkeit, it all comes from the Rebbe. It's not doiris. You're Anshe Moishe, and to me that's very, very, very special, and it's an honor to bring with you. And Mitzvah Shem will do it again soon.
Thank you. If I may offer a bit of my concept of Anshe Moishe. I can say something.
Free country. Leisata.
Shivas B'Tammuz. So Moshe Rabbeinu, it says that was the Nishtabra Luchas. Or it wasn't Nishtabra. Ata Shibarta es Luchas. Now, who was Moshe protecting? Those who were not Oivdei Avodah Zarah, they don't need his protection. They were fine. The Tzaddikim, the Beinanim, or those who just didn't do it. He Pasha was protecting Asher B'Shem Yisrael Yechuna. Not Stam, but not just Shoigigim, but the Fil Zaydim. And what did the Eibusha say? Le'ene kol Yisrael yasher koyach. Anshe Moshe are all the people that we have a chance to meet. It's just we have to bring them to know that even a shoygig, even a mazid, is really their essence is because of Moshe Rabbeinu. Halavai should be a proper keli and not get distracted by all the distractions.
Are you involved at all with this new mitzvah of Likutei Sichos, the project Likutei Sichos? You're a very busy man, so I'll be very impressed if you fit it into your schedule. But you know about it. You're.
I'll tell you, it's Pashat Chaim Mamish. So I'm doing whatever. I'll tell you, I sent out an email for Siyam Rambam. And I said that I'll send it to you if you want. But I want to share with you that I was zeicha to finish the cycle, 3 prakim a day. But what I didn't say, I dropped behind 30 prakim. So Baruch Hashem, I was very happy that I finished the whole year, including the lost prakim. So anyway, I sent out this email. So people sent me Yasher Koach. I was not looking for Yasher Koach. I was trying to be Mizar's mentions of Lenin Rambam. So in sufficient knowledge, I'm partial. I'm not organized enough to, but I am learning some of the sichos.
All I wanted to say was that I'm learning more of Likutei Sichos than I ever learned, obviously, before in my life. And this week, the Sicha on Parshas Devarim, Sicha Aleph of Parshas Devarim, is the Rebbe is out to prove how every location, it's in the beginning of Chumash Devarim, that Moshe Rabbeinu, the Dizav, exactly, how every expression that Moishe uses, which is supposed to be an allusion to one of the times that the Yidden angered the Eibishter, in every time he also inserted a defense, a limud zchus on the Yidden. As he's admonishing them, as he's letting them have it, he says to them, you know what? It's not all your fault. You're an amazing people. You're an amazing people. You're an amazing people. Anshe Moshe. You are.
And this, you don't see why all these young people stood for hours and hours and hours and hours for bringing, and then after they went over to chazer it over, and then they're all different levels, but they stood. They were all. This is Ashreinu Matov Chakenu, and I'm a cotton shabam.
So you should be Mechayim Mesim. That's what the Gemara says. The cotton shabam is Mechayim Mesim. Okay, Rabbi Traxler, thank you very, very much. Sei gesund and Hayom Ha'eli Yavcha L'Sasin L'Simcha.